Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I want to welcome everyone. I'm Steve Aaron, now one day past my birthday. And I want to welcome everyone here for the first of our panels today of what will be a really fabulous day, culminating, of course, in the big sale event this evening. So I hope everyone is ready for a good long day. And we're going to start you with a little intellectual and artistic feast on the art of Western collecting. And as I say, I'm really delighted that we have with us for this panel Jim Parks. And I'll let Bo do longer introductions in a moment. Jim Parks, who is a longtime trustee of the Autry Museum. And I said last night in my remarks, for those of you who are here, and maybe he's going to contradict it right now, that the most important compliment I got on the exhibition last night was that the lighting was okay.
Which you should relish, because it hasn't ever been okay until this year.
Right. The lighting was okay, and more important, the art is fabulous. He didn't say that, I said that, but I think he'll agree. So it is a real pleasure to welcome Jim Parks and Don Humphreys, who joins us from Texas, and we're really delighted that he made his way here for this morning panel. I think everyone knows the rest of the schedule today includes, there's a lunch for those of you who are ticketed for that, and our award ceremony with that. And then at 2 o'clock, we'll have a panel about women artists in the American West, Western women artists. And so that should be fabulous too. And I'm really delighted, and I'm repping for him here, which those of you who got the swag bag also have this really fabulous hat from Maxwell Alexander Galleries, which is the purview of Bo Alexander, who is the founder and director of said Maxwell Alexander Gallery. He is, I think, known to almost everyone in this room, for he is one of the best and runs one of the best and most important contemporary Western art galleries in the world. And he's been a treasured resource to a wide range of Western art collectors, and I should say a treasured resource for us at the Autry Museum for many years as well. His gallery, the Maxwell Alexander Gallery, opened in Los Angeles in 2012, and this spring?
Maybe.
This spring, maybe, he will open his new gallery in Pasadena, where he will, as he has done in the past, certainly has launched the careers of numerous artists who are some of today's most sought after in the world of Western art. Last year, here at our 2023 Masters, Bo was awarded the prestigious John J. Garrity Award. The award was established by the Autry Museum's Board of Trustees to recognize an individual for his or her advancement of contemporary Western art, and as I said, richly deserved. So with that, I'm going to turn us over to Bo Alexander. Thank you so much.
All right, welcome everyone again to the 2024 Masters of the American West. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm joined by two of my good friends that I've come to know over the last decade. To my left here is Don Humphreys. Don and his wife Kathy are joining us today from Dallas, so they flew in just to be here, so thank you so much for being here. Don was previously an executive in the oil industry and has been a longtime collector and supporter of American art and with a focus of art in the American West. And to his left is Jim Parks. Jim, what do we say about you? Jim's a trustee of the Autry Museum, highly successful accountant, owns several hotels, and one of the best art collections that I've ever seen. And so I'm really excited for everyone to be here. We're talking about the art of collecting with two of the best collectors that I know. And what I want to do today is quickly get some background on the collecting style and journey for these two folks. And quickly I want to jump into showing their collection so everyone can see really how impressive it is. Maybe to give some context, just off the top of your head, Don, do you know how many paintings are in your collection?
Yeah, am I doing this right? Can you hear me? Yes. Yeah. We have right around 300 originals in our collection, so it's not a huge one. And we split it up between various places. It's in Dallas and Santa Fe and Colorado.
And when did you first start collecting?
We didn't really start serious collecting probably until about 15 years ago. I was getting ready to retire, and Kathy said, "You better have a hobby because you're not just going to sit around here and bug me all day." So that's really when it got pretty serious.
Jim, how many paintings do you own?
I don't know.
Is it north of 500?
Yes. Phil Anschultz owns 850 paintings. So
he's beating you, or?
I might have more than he does.
Oh, but, and for those that don't know, Phil Anschutz has a private museum in Denver, and the paintings are literally stacked floor to ceiling, and so.
That's because he doesn't have enough wall space.
Right. Well, I just, from a personal standpoint, I've visited the homes of both these gentlemen. They've been kind enough to host me and my family on various occasions. And I can tell you that when I first walked into their homes and saw their collection, you kind of take a step back. And you're huh? I know, I'm controlling it.
Oh, I didn't see it. I didn't see that.
So anyways, this is literally an actual photo of me when I walked into their houses. This is a photo in Jim's home in Santa Fe. And I visited there first with my brother Logan, who's an artist showing in the exhibition here. And it's a beautiful home. We're walking around looking at all the art and all the different rooms, and we're getting ready to go to bed. And Jim's wife, Christina, says, "Well, you guys better get out of here before midnight or else things start to happen." We're like, "What do you mean?" And so she proceeds to, well, how old is this home, Jim? Do you know?
Well, portions go back to the 1800s.
Okay.
But this particular room is from 1929.
Yeah. So his wife proceeds to tell us about the young girl that appears after midnight and starts to ruffle the sheets and move
That's
things.
the little girl.
The little girl, yeah.
It's not quite as scary as The Shining.
Right. But we thought she was just giving us a hard time, and then she tells us about how she went to dinner and met some friends that grew up in Santa Fe, and she's saying, "Oh, Jim and her bought this new home," and their friends are like, "Oh, where is it? What street?" And blah, blah. Oh, they're like, "Oh, I know that house." And the first thing they say is, "Have you seen the little girl?" And so we did not sleep well in the home.
But I want to make it clear that they were not in the haunted part of the home.
No, we left. We stayed in the guest home. Well, let's jump into this. So this is some more pictures in Jim's home. Jim, you're a collector of more than just art. These are old, antique New Mexican furniture. There's a little picture of the outside of your house, the outside oven. Talk a little bit about this furniture and the importance of it and having it in your home.
Well, I've got a house that basically is furnished with New Mexico furniture from that was produced between 1750 and 1940. So, it covers different periods of time that the New Mexico furniture movement, and it wasn't really considered a movement until looking back on it. It was basically furniture you'd put in your house. And so the chest there is from the 1870s, that green chest with there's a Navajo blanket on top of it, and then there's a Frank Applegate over it, and then the chest to my right is, and to your left, or to your right too, is, that's from like 1720, that's Testoto, and then it's next to a Buck Dunn, who is one of the Taoist Artist Society artists.
Did you buy that recently? We sold it. We sold it.
Did I buy that from you?
No, I think you bought it from Nat.
Was that your painting?
Yeah.
Why did you sell it? Actually, I didn't buy that painting from, you bought one like it, Don, because I bought that from John Strong.
We'll have to research that.
No, you have a similar one.
Okay. We'll talk later.
I just want to make sure you know about your collection.
It's gone.
Don, did you grow up with art in your home?
No, not really. But Kathy and I were lucky enough to grow up in Tulsa. And when we were in grade school, you used to get to go on the bus trips where you get a day out to go somewhere. And every year we would have 2 or 3 different places to go, and one of them was always Gilcrease in Tulsa. And sometimes we get to go to Philbrook, and rarely, but especially fun, we'd get to go up to Willow Rock. And so we started seeing really wonderful Western art, when we were kids. And that's really when I started. I just loved the adventure and the color of the paintings we'd see in those places.
What about you, Jim? Did your parents have art in the home?
No.
Yeah. So I think
My mother was a school teacher. My father was a machinist. We
Yeah.
might have had a calendar hanging in there. It had it.
I think it's interesting to know how people got involved in collecting, because there's collectors and then there's not, and sometimes that's a matter of means. But a lot of times it's people don't see the value in art because they didn't grow up with it and they didn't live with it. And so when you grow up with it in your home, you understand it a little better.
Well, my mother, being a school teacher, would drag me along to museums quite a bit. And this was when Los Angeles City school system also had field trips. We're talking a long time ago for me to be a little boy. And so I went to the Southwest Museum. That was part of the field trip that we would go on. And I also went to the LA County Museum. And so I got a real affinity for going to museums and enjoying the material cultural items that they had. And that kind of got me started into the desire to possess all this stuff myself.
Don, do you remember the first painting you bought?
No, not exactly. We started, my interest really got piqued when I was at work one day, and the people that managed the art collection of our company had uncovered a Maynard Dixon. And they brought it in and hung it near where I worked. And I just remember looking at it and thinking, wow, that is just really spectacular. And then, when I kind of think back about it, at that point in time, we couldn't afford a Maynard Dixon. But not long after that, we went to Tucson, and we visited Mark Sublet's place, and I saw some Ed Mells. And I was fascinated by them too, and Dennis Zeminski. And that kind of launched us in terms of what we thought we liked. And yeah, that's kind of how we started.
Good. Let's jump into looking at some of the collection, and we'll pick up some of the background questions as we do that. This first painting is by W.R. Lee. This is in the collection of Don and Kathy Humphreys. Don, tell us about the story around this painting, how you acquired it, and what's special about it to you.
So this is a painting that we bought at auction. It's probably been 7 or 8 years ago now. And I did it through Nat Owings. He was at the auction, and I was on the phone, and I'd seen it in the catalog, and we decided to buy it. And when he got it back, you know, oftentimes these paintings are not really clean. And this painting had been probably in a house for 40 years. There was smoke, people smoking, you know, dust. And so we said, well, let's clean it. Let's clean it and reframe it. And lo and behold, you know, I love the figure, the cowboy in the front, you know, his hand, you know, he's like, holy crap, this thing is going to go bad here pretty quick. But the fun thing about it was once we got it cleaned, and you can see up in the upper right, there's another cowboy. And when we first bought it, you couldn't see. It was kind of dirty enough that was kind of a cool discovery. It's always fun when you buy a piece of art and there's something on the back or something that comes out when you clean it.
This is another one in Don's collection of Frank Tenney Johnson. Fun fact, Frank Tenney Johnson's studio was maybe 20 minutes from here. And tell us about this painting. You have an interesting story around this one as well.
So we were good friends with Boone Pickens, the kind of famous or infamous oil man from Texas. And we got invited to his ranch several times. And one thing he liked to do, he really liked politics. And often he would gather his guests into his office/den. And he would opine on everything you can imagine. And sometimes that would get a little weary. And so over his mantle was this painting. And I used to look at it. I love Frank Tenney Johnson. You know, I know he's famous for nocturnes, but I just love this painting. And I used to just think about it, look at it, and say, oh, that is really a wonderful painting. And when Boone passed away, they sold most of his collection at Christie's a few years ago, and I'm sure I vastly overpaid for it, but I really love it just because of those memories.
So this is another one in Don's collection. I added this one to the slide because I want to talk a little bit about collecting as a couple. You and Kathy have an interesting agreement as to when you won't purchase a painting. This is, I think, more Kathy style. She's a little more contemporary leaning.
Yeah, so this is in our Dallas house. The other two were in Santa Fe. And yeah, Kathy really likes modern abstract art. And so as a rule of thumb, we both look at every piece, and sometimes there's kind of a mutual agreement, and sometimes it's like, no, one of us disagrees. But the key is if one of us loves it, then it's probably going to get purchased. And it's the other thing that happens is as you go through that process is a lot of times it's good to walk away and kind of sleep on it and think about it. Is this really something that is nagging and I can't get it out of my mind? And so we use that test a lot too.
Now I want to go into Jim's story about collecting with his wife and maybe the consequences of some actions. This is a painting by Rebecca James, who's a relatively unknown artist unless you're very familiar with the New Mexico regionalists. She was friends with Georgia O'Keeffe, and maybe that's her biggest claim to fame. But they're rare, and this was a painting, Jim, that you had hanging in your bedroom in Santa Fe. But what happened after that?
Well, First of all, Rebecca James is real rare to collect. And there's such an interesting history between Rebecca James and Georgia O'Keeffe. And this painting is actually a reverse painting on glass. And so, so it's very fragile. But I always found it kind of depressing. And so we've been talking about Nat Owing. Nat Owing's an art dealer in New Mexico, and I had originally bought this Rebecca James from him, and then he approached me, and he was offering me 3 times what I paid for it, and I said, well, sounds like a good deal to me, so I sold it. And that afternoon, my wife, Christina, discovered that I had sold it. And I never really knew that she was that attached to the painting until she started wailing. And so I said, well, I can't have this happen to me. There's chaos occurring in my house. So I went back to Nat, and and he had already sold it, so he had, so in one day I sold it to him, and he had resold it. And I said, Nat, I got to get that painting back. And so I got to pay a premium over what I sold him to get this painting back. And so my wife now has got possession of this painting, and so she knows that, so that I will never sell it. She's got it in her office in Santa Fe, so she can always make sure she's got her eye on it, and it'll never disappear again. And quite frankly, I learned my lesson. And so I don't sell anything without consulting with her first, because I don't want to rebuy it.
And we'll use Rebecca James and her relationship to Georgia O'Keeffe to going right into Georgia O'Keeffe. These are 2 paintings in Jim's collection. The one on the right is, how many times did Georgia paint that famous black door?
Well, she painted that black door a lot.
Yeah.
It's up in her house in Abiquiu, so she liked the shape and the form. And, Georgia O'Keeffe, you have to kind of live with a long time before you kind of get her style and her approach. I mean, it took me a while to warm up to her paintings.
But now she's one of your favorites.
She's one of my favorites, and could be financially as well, because she's probably appreciated the most of any of artists that's within my collection.
Does that come into play when you're buying a painting like Georgia or any painting? Are you thinking of the long term?
I have a very organic collection, so I try to buy the best that I can, and if on what appears on the market, and then if something appears that I think is better, then I try to buy that painting, which then might mean that I might sell the example of the artist that I already had of that work. Well, you got a lot of Georgia O'Keeffes here.
Well, they're yours, not mine. Well, the one on the right is Don's.
Yeah, the one on the right is not mine. That's Don's, but the one on the left is mine.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to just quickly. Don is on the.
Yours, Don?
No.
No, that one,
Don's on
that pencil drawing in Pedernal, that's kind of the level of O'Keeffe we can afford. But yeah, we love her, and I've been on the board of the museum there for about 8 or 9 years, and it's been fascinating to watch her art take off. It's really astounding.
Were you? So Don is on the board. This painting was deaccessioned.
Yeah, that painting. I know it's not yours because I know it's Alice Walton's.
Yeah.
But that painting sold for $44,560,000, and
It broke the record.
Broke the record for O'Keeffe, and
Yeah,
that would be a painting I would covet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I had just joined the board when we decided to do that. And museums, you probably all know this, you can't be you can't sell a painting and then use the money for something other than to buy another painting, or you won't be a valid museum anymore. So selling this one, because we had another one similar to it at the museum, really allowed us to bolster our acquisition fund. When you sell something for $44 million, that really helps. And what it allowed us to do is to broaden our collection. We wanted a famous painting of hers I think it's Black Cross with blue sky and stars, and another one of her New York scenes. And we were able to let this one go and get 2 more that really helped us broaden out the collection.
And you still had money left over.
We not a lot, but we had some.
Depends on what you consider a lot, but anyhow.
Well, isn't it true that you all decided to deaccession this painting because you had a similar one that was, you didn't need 2 of them, so you went ahead and went to broaden the collection with that? All right, I'm going to try to go a little quicker because we're a little tight on time, but I want to touch on a few of the favorites. Both of their collections are very well-rounded, and I think the similarities between the two is that they focused on New Mexico for the most part and have built a pretty well-rounded collection of the Taos Society of Artists. But both of these gentlemen focused in on an artist that they really loved. And for Jim, it's Victor Higgins. So this is the first Victor Higgins that you ever bought, Jim. Do you remember what year that was?
No. It was a while ago.
And how many do you own now?
I thought something like 35, maybe a few more.
So 35 of maybe one of the most sought-after artists in the art of the American West.
Well, you have to be into it, but so those are a few more, yeah.
Well, the one on the left, I know you bought at auction maybe 2-3 years ago.
I bought that at Coeur d'Alene.
Yep.
And
what goes into the decision making, buying
Well,
at auction versus buying through a gallery? Do you?
well, it depends on who has it.
You don't mind.
No, I mean, if I love the painting, then I'm going to end up with the painting. And so I bought, that was at Coeur d'Alene not a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And then it was hanging over at the Scottsdale Museum of the American West. It was on loan there for a while.
Talk about that a little bit, Jim. You loan out a lot of your collection to museums. What's the importance of that for you?
Well, I want people to enjoy them. I mean, I want to have this, to be an experience for. Well, you got a lot of Victor Higgins there.
Once again, they're not mine.
But so I want people to enjoy it on the broader public, to appreciate artists. By the way, I do collect living artists as well. I want to make it clear.
We'll get there. Maybe.
But so that Taos, that's the old man at Taos, I think that's the title. That came out of Steve Wynn's collection, but it was owned. I can't. Right now, I'm taking a blank. It became part of his ex-wife's collection, and which is a lot of how painting purchase opportunities come about through death, divorce, and debts, and the 3 Ds of art collecting. And oh, there we go. We got.
Well, I put this slide together because I want to show when you have the ability to collect, multiple paintings from a particular artist, it also gives you the opportunity to buy paintings that are maybe not as typical. And so the painting on the right is a Victor Higgins, and you can see the influence of this one. Maybe it's a little later.
That's painted in the 30s. The one on the right of that Cubist painting on the right, that Victor Higgins is. I liked it because it had a Cubist style to it, and I felt it was important to kind of show how Victor Higgins evolved as an artist.
And that's something that we encourage for collectors, when you find an artist that you love and you're able to buy multiple pieces from that artist, it gives you the opportunity to not just buy the quintessential piece, which is usually what people go for first. It gives you the opportunity to show the full career and different aspects of an artist, because artists don't just paint the same thing every day. A lot of them become famous for one or two things, but as you collect more, you come to love maybe the ones that are a little different even more. I'm just showing it's my understanding that Emil Bistrom, who was also in Taos around the time of the Taos Society, went to Mexico and studied with Diego Rivera, came back, and perhaps influenced Victor Higgins to try some different things. Now, moving on to maybe Don's favorite artist, and the one that he mentioned that sparked his interest in art of the American West, and that's Maynard Dixon. This is a major work by Dixon, Navajos in the Canyon, that you have in your home. And you can see Don has done the same thing in the photo on the right. He's got two landscape studies by Dixon. He's got in the lower right, you can see the pencil sketch for the Navajos in the Canyon, which is great to hang together. In the bottom left, you have a copy of Sunset Magazine, I believe, which features a Maynard Dixon. I'll jump back to that one, but this is the painting in Sunset Magazine. So was that your goal when you bought that painting? You knew it was on the cover, and
Yeah, it was. I like to have the originals, but I also like to have context around them. And so I knew that this had been on the cover of Sunset Magazine. And you can see the title of the story was The Red Slaves of Oklahoma. And if you've seen the new movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, this is about the same issues. And if you notice closely, you can see that there are vultures behind the Indian chief. And when this came to auction, it had both the painting and the magazine. So that was nice. And the story goes, and I don't know whether this is true or not, that when Maynard Dixon painted the original, it was the cover. He painted he painted all the words in the painting, and went back later and whited all that out. And that was the painting on the left. And then on the right, you can see kind of where it's hanging and our favorite blanket, Logan's blanket, and that's where I cozy up and watch TV some days. So yeah.
And just quickly, I want to touch on Maynard Dixon during the Depression did a whole series on figures, and this is one of his most iconic and maybe most important paintings just for American art history. And this is in Don's collection as well. Do you have anything in particular to say about this one besides it's a great one of your favorites?
It's those were rare. There weren't that many of them. I don't know, maybe half a dozen or so. They're all kind of iconic. I just loved, the angle of the man walking down the tracks and the context of it being during the Depression.
How'd you acquire such a rare painting?
Paid a lot of money for it. No, it
Who'd
came
you get
through,
that from?
It came through Nat Owings. Yeah, he had it. And that's funny. He when he gets something that he really likes, and Jim knows this, he puts it in his office. And so it's not kind of out in the gallery. And when you get invited into his office, it's like being invited. He wouldn't like me saying this, but it's like being invited into a spider's web. It's hard to get out. So yeah, we just love this painting.
Jim, this is a Maynard Dixon that you own, a larger scale. I believe it's 25 by 30. Again, this is one that you bought at auction. Did you make, when you buy a painting at auction, how involved are you with speaking with dealers that maybe specialize in this particular artist or any particular artist versus your own knowledge? And what's your process behind
Well,
researching?
it's my own knowledge. And this did go through auction. And I'm trying to remember if I were on the phone or I asked somebody to be on the phone. But again, it's, kind of, to me, it's iconic, Maynard Dixon for that time period.
How do you know when to stop when you're bidding at auction?
What?
How do you know when to stop when you're bidding at auction? How do you know where your limit is?
Well, it depends on,
When he's won.
what I want. Yeah, it depends on how much I want it. You know, so if I say it's critical, then it becomes mine. But you know, I normally try to figure out who else might be interested in it of my close group of friends. So we don't beat each other up too much. And but this one, you know, I thought I paid a reasonable price for it. I got value for it.
Talk about some of the paintings that you haven't bought. There's something in collecting that I think keeps art galleries in business. It's that memory of the painting that got away, which then creates urgency to not let it happen again.
You mean ones that I have been unsuccessful?
Yeah. What's the one? What's the one that stands out in your mind?
Well, I was on the phone. I was trying to buy another O'Keeffe that was recently a recent O'Keeffe, and it was kind of a waterfall titled "The Dry Waterfall," and it ultimately became a bidding war between me and a bidder out of Japan, which tells you, you know why O'Keeffe might be something good to collect, because it's got an international demand. And you know, I kind of made up in mind what I was going to pay, and you know, I actually was on the right side of the bid, so I got to the top of what I was going to pay, and then another bid came in. I said, well, I guess that's going to be that person in Japan's O'Keeffe, and so I stopped. So I do set limits if it's something that I could not have in my collection.
Here's a few more Maynard Dixons. These are in Jim's collection. The one on the left
Came out of Mark Sublet's collection.
Sublet here. And that's a Santa Fe subject. Dixon didn't spend much time in Santa Fe, so those are fairly rare. It's a good example of that. Don, do you have a story about a painting that got away that haunts you at night?
I was thinking about that. I can't really remember one. I don't know, Kathy, do you remember anything like that? I don't know. No?
All right, that's okay. Well, go ahead.
I got a story that I was the underbidder and then got the opportunity to buy it at another time.
I've done that. You know, something goes through auction and it may not sell.
It's sold.
And you can come back in and sometimes you can make a really good bargain. That Navajos in the Canyon was like that. It didn't sell, and then we decided we'd go make an offer afterward.
So this is Ernest Blumenschein. Both of these paintings are in Jim's collection. The painting on the left is actually in the galleries in the museum, if anyone would like to go look at it after. And again, Jim, that's your way of opening up the world to your world and to promoting art of the American West. That's your main reason for loaning these paintings out. The painting on the right, I think, is interesting because when we put together art collections, either as a private buyer or as a dealer like myself, a lot of times they're coming out of, they're behind the scenes deals that aren't necessarily hanging in an art gallery. And as Jim mentioned, there's debt, divorce, death, that bring paintings out. And I won't give too much of a background on how that happened with this painting.
But that painting opportunity came as a result of debt.
Right.
But that painting was hanging at the Autry as well, and the lighting was so bad, and it was hung in such a bad spot that I said, well, you know what? I think it'd look better in my house. So I took it back. I mean, that is a promised gift to the Autry. So when I die, I hope they hang it in a spot that has better light.
So you acquired that painting basically when someone else needed the funds.
Well, I acquired that painting in 2008, and if you recall, that was the financial meltdown that financial meltdown in 2008. There's been several meltdowns, but that one happened, and that's when you had a lot of financial institutions get merged, and the owner of that painting got into that crunch. Actually, both paintings were acquired as a result of debt, both resulting from the 2008 meltdown, because the one on the eagle nest painting on the left was also acquired because the collector of that had got into a squeeze as a result of the financial meltdown and needed to sell that painting to ease his financial issues. So,
And Ernest Blumenschein is one of the founding members of the Taos Society of Artists. The Taos Society is a theme in both of their collections again. The painting on the right, though, the subject matter is maybe not as typical for Blumenschein. Talk about the importance of that painting.
you mean the New Mexico peon?
Yeah.
Well, it's a very important painting, but it's, the Idol George has, kind of a similar theme with the plasterer. This fellow is, doing an outside plastering, and the Idol George has an interior painting done by Blumenschein. I mean, so I think they're both kind of typical Blumenscheins. Blumenschein evolved as an artist. He was very modernist in some of the things he did. The one on the left of the Eagle's Nest, that's out of a series, I think, of 5, of which 3 of them are in museums.
And Blumenschein is probably one of the most important artists out of the Taos Society, in my opinion. Here's a few more. The painting on the left is in Don's collection, and the two.
Yeah, Don managed to get the Blumenschein on the left before I could.
The middle and right are Jim's. So let's move to living artists. When I look at collecting deceased versus living, I think collecting living artists is more difficult because history's already done the work for us. Scholars and hindsight gives us the ability to look back at time and see which are the most important artists and to look at their full career and understand, okay, these are the best, this is the best era, etc. But when you're collecting living artists, you're collecting it in real time. And there's maybe some more risk involved, and maybe you lean on people a little bit more in the profession to guide you. Don, these are 2 paintings that you own by my brother, Logan Maxwell Ajej. And talk about that a little bit. Talk about, do you lean on art galleries or on dealers to present art that you trust that you could collect and should be in your collection?
Yeah, to a certain extent, but a lot of it just comes back to what you really like. What do you love to look at? We have 2 artists that we really love to look at their art every day and all the time, and one of them is Logan, and the other is Ed Mell. Very sad day, and I would say that Mark Sublette helped us a lot getting to know Ed and his work, and that was very helpful. And you helped us with Logan. I love the painting on the right just because of the folds and the blanket and the stripes. I'm attracted to that, and I like the cowboy because his shirt tail is coming out. I just think they're wonderful paintings.
And Don, here's a couple of paintings that you own of Logan's.
Those are mine.
I'm sorry, Jim.
But if Don wanted to own them, I'm sure we could cut a deal. Right?
Jim, talk about how important it is for you to have a personal connection with the artists that you collect, as far as.
Well, it's very special with Logan. I view Logan as a special friend, and as you can see, I've got the artist and a photo of the artist with the painting. He actually painted that, I think, in 2006. Is that? Something like that. Yeah. So that's one of Logan's early works. And then I bought that landscape off of his easel, I believe.
Yeah.
So, I think, you know, Logan is a very important artist of the American West that still seems to be on the right side of the dirt. So we're, you know, I'm pleased to be able to collect his work, and every once in a while have a conversation with him.
How much of your day is spent thinking about art? Is it just something that relaxes you do on vacation on the weekends?
Well, it relaxes me, so I don't have much time to think about art during the week. And in fact, I'm so busy during the day, I actually get home, I can't even make it up to my bed. I fall asleep in a chair first and then make it upstairs. But it is definitely my passion on when I have moments that I can pursue it. And that John Moyer's on the right, I actually commissioned. Mark Sublett arranged it. I once owned that blanket, and then I got, I'm kind of like, if you pay me enough, I'll part with something. So I no longer own the blanket, but I still own that work of art, and it's very special to me. And then I was at your show. I think I bought that from your gallery, and I like Terry's work a lot, and I thought that was a great scene in New Mexico. So
I talked to John about this painting prior the other day. He said it's about 30 years old, the one on the right. Talk about collecting 30 years ago. No internet, you're not getting text on your phone with images. You have to probably go into the gallery, or you have to research the artist on your own. What was it like collecting then versus now?
Easier.
Then?
Quite frankly,
Really?
The internet. The art market's an imperfect market, and what I mean by an imperfect market, you can certainly have buying opportunities that aren't as easy to take advantage of when everybody knows about it because of social media and the internet. And
Sorry, don't stop because I changed the slide.
well, I think it was easier back then.
Yeah.
And like that, actually John had painted something similar to that, and I said, well, I like that painting, and Mark was handling John at the time, and so I just commissioned it. And
So I just want to say something really quickly. Lunch starts at 11:30. We started a little late because of the bus being late. Jen or Steve, should I continue or okay? So I'm going to try to pick it up a little bit. These are a couple paintings in Don's collection of Ed Mell. For those that don't know, Ed passed away about 3 days ago, and he's an icon of the American West and one of the most recognizable artists. I have various stories I could share about Ed. I'm not sure we have time for them, but these are two great examples of Ed's work. If you look at Ed's paintings from the 80s until today, he had different iterations of his own style, yet they were all very much Ed. And these are two good examples of that. The one on the left is slightly more realistic, but still with a modernist feel. And the one on the right is kind of a quintessential angular Ed Mell. Don and Jim, did either of you know Ed? Do you have a personal relationship with him?
Go ahead.
well, I knew Ed, and I invited Ed to be part of the Masters show, and so he was kind enough to join the show, and he was, and he was going to show in this year's show, but he was just too sick to produce another painting. So we were privileged to have him in the show a couple of years, and I'm very sorry that he's a good guy. He collected cars too, so he was a collector as well.
Yeah, I just, one thing I like about Ed's paintings, when you walk in a room and you look at the art around you, you absolutely know Ed Mell's paintings. I mean, there's no question, and they're wonderful.
I'll just share a quick story. When we started the gallery about 12 years ago, we basically had no reason for artists to work with us besides their relationship with Logan and their trust in Logan. And Ed had already had his longtime relationships with, Medicine Man Gallery and Nat Owings, which was Dewey Owings at the time. And, Ed was kind enough to send a couple paintings to us every couple of years to, he really didn't need our help, but having him send paintings to our gallery kind of gave a stamp of approval that I think ultimately helped us in the long run. And it was I spoke to Ken, his studio manager, and he said the last painting that Ed completed was a commission that him and I had been working on for the last year. So, I was in contact with him very frequently over the last year and a half, and so we are very sad to hear of his passing. I'm gonna keep moving. This is, I want to include, there's 50 slides here. I think we're at like the 10th slide, so we're not going to get through this. But I want to highlight some people really quickly. And Don, this goes back to my question about relying on an art gallery. I'm trying to get a compliment out of you, so I'm just kidding.
Well, we rely on you, and we love the artists that you represent. And this one is from last year.
This won the Patron's Choice Award, I believe.
Patron's Choice Award last year. I love it.
Yeah, and Brett's an artist that we've been working with for about 6 or 7 years. That we're the first gallery he's worked in, and so it's important when collectors like Don add a newer artist to their collection. And so I know Brett's grateful for that. And here's another one, Danny Gagliotti, that you purchased from us.
Yeah, this is a really kind of joyous painting. We love his stuff. I think he painted this. He may have been started this when he went on your big out west trip, I think. And that's just it's fun. I love to look at it.
Okay, I want to go through maybe 2 more slides, and then we'll do questions with the audience if anyone has one. We're up till now, with the exception of George O'Keeffe, we've been looking at Western regionalists, and now this is Thomas Hart Benton is also a regionalist, not a Western regionalist. But there's certain artists throughout art history that rise above their label, or their genre, and they become important American artists. And Thomas Hart Benton is one of them. Both of these are in Jim's collection. And the main reason I'm showing this painting is because when Logan and I visited Jim's house, he was showing us around, and we walked into his office that doubles as a bedroom. It's a bed. And
It actually is when I'm too tired to work any longer, I go lay down in that.
yeah. Well, there was a painting on the floor leaning against the bed, and Logan and I were like, "What's this, Don?" And we pick it up, and it's the Thomas Hart Benton on the left that's worth more than most houses, just sitting on the floor. And so we grabbed it and hung it for him. So the interesting fact about Thomas Hart Benton, one of his most famous students is actually Jackson Pollock. So it's interesting to look back at, look at this, and then you get to this. So it's really interesting to see where inspiration comes from, and it's through Thomas Hart Benton. Again, we have another important American artist. This is probably where I'll stop here. This is maybe one of the most important paintings in Don's collection. And Don, you purchased this painting at auction. We actually spoke, I think, a day or 2 before via email about this painting. And at the time, when you purchased this painting, you broke the record for Rockwell Kent, who's another iconic American artist. Again, how did you know where to go as far as price to purchase this?
Well, I didn't know where to go on price. I knew it would be expensive, but this was one of those that, like Jim spoke about, I was not going to let get away, because when I was a kid, this painting was actually owned by the Encyclopedia Britannica company at one point in time. And when I was a kid, I remember, you had to do book reports all the time, and I remember leafing through one, and it was I happened to come on stories or background about the Arctic. And this painting was actually in Encyclopedia Britannica at the time. And so it was, nostalgia. I've never seen a Rockwell Kent that I like better than this one. I mean, you don't see that many that have that many figures, people and dogs. We just love it.
It was an emotional, you say it was an emotional purchase
It
versus
was emotional, but I love it too.
but it turned out to be a strategic purchase because it's since then,
I hope it's strategic. I don't know.
it's probably doubled in price, and his auction records have been broken several times since that.
Well, I actually view my collection as an American art collection. And an American art collection is incomplete without a Rockwell Kent. So unfortunately, I don't have one, but
I'll find one for you. All right, I'm gonna rapidly go through some of these things just so you can see the collection, and then we'll look for questions of the audience if anyone has any. This is, again, another very important artist that's in Jim's collection, Marston Hartley. And this is a cool painting of Joseph Henry Sharp. You can see the chest in front of it is also featured in the painting.
that's actually up at the Sharp House
In Taos.
Museum.
in Taos.
And this is Jim's favorite painting of Walter Ufer, again, a Taos Society of Artists.
And that painting, I was the underbidder the first time it came up. It was out of a very important collection, but I was the underbidder. But then it came up for auction again, and I wasn't going to be the underbidder again, so I got it.
And this is one of my favorite artists in the Taos Society, Herbert Dunton. And that was the one that these two guys were fighting about earlier, who bought it first.
Well, we're going to settle this privately.
This is also Herbert Dunton did wildlife paintings that have recently have become wildly expensive. And these are probably about 16 by 20, 20 by 16 size pieces. Don, I think yours is a little bigger. But just to give context, a 10 by 8 recently sold for north of 300,000. And that's not a big one. Jim, you're a collector of everything. These are two Isla McAfees. One's in Don's collection, one's in Jim's collection. But that's the blanket that's featured in the painting.
Now, if you notice, Don, that blanket's mine.
And I notice how much bigger yours is than mine.
Oscar Burninghouse, Jim's on the right, Don's on the left. Again, Taos Society of Artists. Edgar Payne, these are two quintessential Edgar Paynes, but two pretty different pieces. One on the left is Jim's of Canyon de Chelly. The one on the right is Don's with the figures on horseback. George Carlson, another American icon, who's in the Masters of the American West here. Berger Senzanne, I'm saying that wrong. Len Schmiel, another master that's in the Masters. Armin Hansen, Robert Henry, Frederick Remington, Leon Gaspard. It goes on. Burt Phillips, Kenneth Adams. All right, let's open it up for questions. Do we have microphones for the? Oh, we got one in the back here.
Don, on the Lee that you bought that benefited from being cleaned up, did you know at the time that you were bidding on that the condition would possibly be an issue that you might be able to benefit from cleaning? And how often when you get into bidding situations is condition an issue that you consider?
Well, you always consider it. I was not at the auction. Nat was working for me on that one. And he told me that the condition could be improved and he could do it in a reasonable way. And it wasn't like it needed to be in painting or anything like that. It just needed to be cleaned. I'm okay with cleaning. Most of the other stuff I really shy away from.
I have a curious question. Your collections are extraordinary. And my question is there anything in your collection that reflects the African American experience in the West? And if there isn't, why do you think that is?
Well, I own that, Dean? Yes. I own 5 of your paintings. So do you think I've got something that reflects the experience, or?
I want to say that I focused this on art of the American West specifically, and they do collect other genres. And
But it's important, it is,
What I'm saying is African Americans were in the West.
absolutely.
And, I've been in the Autry show for a number of years. And, for a long time, I was the only artist of color. So I'm just curious with these auctions, even from a historical standpoint, we were rarely talked about in books, or we were basically erased from the narrative. So I'm trying to say, what is being done to sort of to correct some of this in some ways where, younger people of color, and so we have a better relationship with the masters of the American West. And since I've been in the show, I've never seen any African Americans come in here and really support or buy or purchase or anything. So I'm just kind of curious how come this separation continues.
I don't know why that is, quite frankly. But like I said, I do collect your work.
Yes,
And
I understand.
my father-in-law thinks you're the best watercolorist he's ever seen. So, he's very complimentary. I'm very complimentary of your work. I know I have friends that, and I don't want to single you out, but it really is, what presents itself that I think is a fine work of art. I think I would like, I normally consider it for my collection. I consider it for the Autry's collection. You and other Afro-Americans were part of the Autry collection, some of them which I provided the funding. So it's really about collecting great art, right. And if it's illustrative in the story it's telling, I think that's a good element, because I do like paintings that reflect a story. Mm-hmm. So am I answering your question, or?
Well, yeah,
I don't
you
have
are,
the
but
answer.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't have the answer to this. I'm not sure we know. I think we're probably in a position to learn from, we welcome it.
I think it's a good question, and it's one that we've scratched our heads about, because only recently have we started to collect African American artists, and mainly it's just because we haven't seen it. I don't know.
So
I have no idea.
I want to answer in part there, if I can, that it's a very important point, and it's a larger point. But I also want to argue that in the Masters exhibition this year, I think 1/4 of the artists are Native American this year, which reflects some of the ways in which I think the art is being diversified. That from past, if you look, in fact, Jim Ray, I had him go look back and collect some numbers about this, which we'll talk a little bit more, actually maybe a way to sort of introduce this afternoon's panel about the presence of women, or the lack thereof, in the art of the American West and the canon of that art, George O'Keeffe aside.
I'll say something really quickly also, and again, this is just a small thing. I've been working with the NAACP over the last 2 years and they've become, at least one of their curators has become very interested in art of the American West, and we're in the process of doing a commission with Thomas Blackshear. This isn't a great example because the first artist that they chose was not a person of color through the West, but it's opened the conversation, and they're now wanting to get more. So maybe that could be something that expands it and gets more people of color involved.
Well, I'd certainly appreciate it if you'd point some out to me, because I'm always looking for new emerging artists that I think are going to become important, and I think you've become important. So.
We've got 3 of the best in the show right now, with Ezra, Thomas, and
I can't hear you.
He's,
I'm a victim of heavy metal. I can't hear very well anymore.
we have 3 of the best in the genre, with Ezra and Thomas and Dean, and we're always looking for other talented artists to bring to the show. So,
I was talking to Mark last night. Kathy and I have decided to really turn our forward-looking collecting toward Native American artists. We had a pretty substantial collection of historic Texas art, and we decided to divest that. And I just think it's something that's important to our country, and I think it's kind of been overlooked. And I actually, and this is kind of selfish, I think there's a lot of value potentially there in both African American art and in Native American art.
Unfortunately, I think that's all the time that we have for this presentation. I want to, once again, I want to say
If I
something.
can put in one more plug for the Autry here, in 2025, we have an exhibition coming to the Autry on African-American cowboys and African-Americans in equestrian traditions. So look for that too.
I want to say something really quickly, personal thing. That I want to thank Don and Jim personally. When we first started the gallery around 12 years ago, we came into it with nothing and no client list, not much money, and we just came in with an idea and a philosophy on how an art gallery should be run. But that doesn't pay the bills. And Don is one of our earliest patrons, Don and Kathy, and without their support, I'm not sure that we would have survived through the years to make it to where we are today. So I want to just acknowledge you, Don, and thank you for your contribution. And sorry, I know we got to cut it. Just quickly, I want to do the same for Jim. Over the last 7 years, Jim has been a mentor, a friend, a confidant, and a big supporter. So I also want to publicly acknowledge you and thank you. And thank you, everyone, for coming today.